Ate my crits.
Hello, my name is Ian, the part-time Dungeon Master, and welcome back to another D20 Sundays. Or is this more of the Dungeon Master's Corner? You see, a long time ago I said that I wanted the D20 Sundays to be more stories as far as, what I've had to do and what happened in, groups and campaigns and stuff, while the Dungeon Master's Corner is more about helping my fellow Dungeon Masters with ideas or even helping fine-tuning things. And I guess I kind of mix them together, but I guess that's fine. I'll put this in the Dungeon Master's Corner section, while it is also still D20 Sundays, because every Sunday is a D20 Sunday. But on to today's video. It's about homebrewing your own rules. You see, I recently put something out on the DM's Guild where I, made my own homebrew monsters, and it got me to thinking about what about homebrewing my own rules. And there actually are a number of rules that I've made for myself. I've made the runic system, I've made some housekeeping homebrew rules that help with critical damage and, speeding up combat just a little bit, so on and so forth. It can be a little overwhelming at first, especially with, players getting used to these rules, but once they get used to them, it definitely speeds combat up and definitely helps the flow of the game. And for the most part, my players have, respected these homebrew rules, and I'm thankful for that. But thinking of that, you as a Dungeon Master should definitely come up with at least one or two homebrew rules. And I don't mean as far as, oh, I'm changing this major thing, but more of changing a few things to help the flow of combat is one of the biggest ones, but also just the flow of the story. Perhaps in your world, magic works a little differently. Homebrew it, test it out on your own, and then, slowly integrate it into the party and see how they react to it. I, for one, changed a small little thing about magic in my campaign. I created something called the runic system. The runic system is essentially lost old magic being refound, where magic in the olden days was done through magical runes that were carved and imbued with the magical essence. But because that form of magic is no longer known, it's pretty much like we dug this up and it's actually kind of kick-ass. For the most part, if you don't imbue it correctly, whatever you enchanted with this rune is pretty much a one-use thing. It's a cheap magical effect. It does just a little bit of fire damage, a little bit of force damage, or whatever. The point of the runes, though, was that it was to show that there was two major kind of scales found about it in the world. The first being the cheap little, it can do minor things like, make a force mine to where if you step on it, it activates and does 1d4 points of force damage to you and, knocks you back 5 feet. And then how you could chain them together and really ruin someone's day. But not important. The other side was what I call the experience rune, and I've used this in 2 groups so far, and they both loved it so much. Essentially, it gives them the opportunity to earn a legendary weapon. Because I haven't really worked on it for armor as of yet, and I'm trying to fine-tune that a little bit more. But as far as the runic weapons becoming legendary, this is how it works. Essentially, if it has an experience rune, it starts out as a plain normal weapon, such as a plain longsword with the experience rune carved on it. And the other runes will carve themselves into the weapon as the weapon gains experience. It has its own leveling chart and how much experience it needs in order to go up to the next level. And of course, this weapon must be attuned to its wielder. If it loses the attunement, then it stops being a legendary weapon, essentially. It goes back to just being a plain weapon. But, at level 0, essentially, it is a plain longsword. At level 1, it is a +1 longsword. At level 2, it gains elemental damage, so it's a +1 flaming, +1 frost, +1 lightning longsword. At level 3, it gains the ability of burst, which essentially when it strikes something and you crit on that strike, it causes a bursting effect of whatever element was previously inscribed when it leveled up. Again, the runes are supposed to be random. You don't know which rune you're supposed to get, and not until you get to that level, and it kind of appears by itself, because the experience rune uses its own magic to carve that rune in. And then once it hits the maximum level, it becomes a +2 weapon of that element and burst. And the burst itself is like it does 2d10 in a 15-foot cone. Now, I know that sounds really powerful, but again, it's supposed to be really powerful because it's a legendary item. It's supposed to become like that. But that's an example of the homebrew rules that I've introduced into my campaigns, and I've had really good, feedback on. There's players who want to know, how can I carve my own runes if I wanted to, discover some of the old ones that, have been long forgotten, or if I wanted to create my own experience runes. How would I go about doing this? And at the same time, if they get an experience weapon, or a weapon that has an experience rune on it, then they know that if they work hard enough and they use this weapon enough, it will become a legendary weapon for them to use later on in the game. That being said, I've also had to remind players that they have to actually use the weapon, such as if, say, you're a ranger using your bow primarily, and you have a sword that has an experience rune on it, that sword isn't really getting the experience it needs in order to level up, because you're mostly using your bow. You have to actually use the sword in that combat in order for it to start leveling up. And of course, the levels are, vast as far as, you need a lot of experience in order to go up to the next level. It's not like, ooh, kill a few goblins, it levels up. No. It takes a lot more than that. What else? Oh yeah, there's also been the fact that I've changed a few rules here and there when it came to how certain spells work. And I did this purely because the way that these spells are worded at times, rule lawyers just aggravate the ever-living shit out of me. And they try and argue what the spell says. And I get it. You want perfect things. You want to be completely in control of how this spell works. But using Flaming Sphere and moving it as a bonus action up to 30 feet, I think it is, between two squares that are side by side to constantly make the two people, do dexterity saves or get hit by that damage, to where you're hitting them close to, I think it's like 12 times, in like less than 6 seconds, to where, the two of them have to both make 6 saves, or take, 6 times the normal number of d6 of damage. That's kind of broken as shit. So I changed that rule to where you can't just ping pong it of death between the two targets. At least not in one round. I changed it to where you can only move the Flaming Sphere in one direction up to 30 feet as a bonus action. So that way it's a lot easier to deal with versus someone doing the ping pong maneuver between two very close targets and causing them both to take massive amounts of damage while you're just sitting there in the background waving your hand around. I get it, you're a wizard and you're supposed to, but at the same time, that it gets kind of absurd to, it's like, okay, I have to roll how many dexterity saves for these two NPCs that you're burning to death? I gotta roll 6 for each? Gah! That happened like 3 times, and that's why I made that roll. It's like, okay, no, we're fixing this. We are not dealing with this any further, because that is broken. But there's also, a few other housekeeping rules that I've had to make in the past, and have definitely helped with moving things along. That's about it. That's really all I wanted to share with you guys today. Thank you very much for coming to this D20 Sundays, or Dungeon Master's Corner, or watching the video. Let's go with that. Thank you for watching this video. As always, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. And stick around for more of my D&D content, and spread the word. Get me some more subscribers. If you do, I'll shave my head and dye my beard. Anyways, laters.